West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
This mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Tuesday, July 1. Yes, summer is indeed here with the 1st of July, but the show rolls on because we've got a lot to talk about this morning for sure. President Obama yesterday coming out in the Rose Garden and telling us reporters at the White House, it's very clear right now, because John Boehner has said so, that Congress will not vote on immigration reform this year. Therefore, the president said, I'm going to do it myself. I will do as much as I can do by executive action to further tighten the border and to start recognizing a path to citizenship certainly for some Americans who have been here for years and years and years, brought here by their parents, many of whom have served in the military. The president going on his own on immigration reform. Good for him. Meanwhile, most of the focus yesterday on the Supreme Court. You know, when the Supreme Court issues a 5-4 decision, it's probably a bad one. And yesterday we saw two of the worst decisions ever. And the first one, of course, the court said that the owners of Hobby Lobby and other businesses, if their religion tells them that contraception is wrong, they don't have to obey the Affordable Care Act. They can break the law and use their religion as an excuse. You can see where that could lead. And in the second decision, the court also said that some public employees, home health care workers, can be leeches, can be freeloaders. They can take advantage of all the benefits that a union provides without having to pay any union dues. Another horrible, horrible decision. And the United States, very excited, gearing up today for the next big match in the World Cup. USA versus Belgium at 4 o'clock Eastern Time today. We'll all be there watching that game. And it's good to have you here with us watching and listening this morning. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Your comments welcome on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
When the Supreme Court rules 5-4, you know it's bad news. And it was yesterday. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Tuesday, July 1. Summer is here. No doubt about it now. We're into July with the Bill Press Show this Tuesday morning. So good to see you. And so good to be back with you. Missed you yesterday, and maybe you noticed I wasn't here. Peter Ogburn was, and thank you, Peter, for keeping...
Trust me, everyone noticed that you weren't here
keeping the good ship Lollipop afloat here yesterday. And, I wanted to get back from the beach in Rhode Island yesterday. I just couldn't get a flight. I couldn't find a train. And
Crimea River.
I tried to rent a car. I tried everything, and I just couldn't make it, so I just had to spend
it's a bummer, isn't it?
I know.
Man, I know you worked your butt
I had
off.
to spend another day at the beach and take one last swim in the ocean yesterday before coming back. But at any rate, here we are all together again. Great to see you this Tuesday morning. Thank you for joining us on your local progressive talk radio station. Thanks for joining us on the TuneIn app. TuneIn, it's free. Download it. We keep telling you that. Hope you do so. If you are not lucky enough to have a progressive talk radio station in your community, this is how you get us on the radio. The TuneIn app, Progressive Voices channel. And thank you, and good to see you on Free Speech TV. Those of you watching this morning all across this wonderful land of ours of Free Speech TV, thanks for being there. And worldwide on the video stream, Talker TV. Hello, Belgium. You're going to get your ass kicked today.
Yeah.
But it's good to have you with us this morning, anyhow. YouTube.com/Talker TV. Yeah, and this is the first time in some time that we don't know. We don't have the whole gang here.
That's right.
We count. Monty's part of the gang.
Monty's part of the gang.
Yeah, right. But Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Welcome back, Elisa. Right.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Alicia Cruz is here on the phones. There she is, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Balding's still on the run, but Monty Kanzler is here as our videographer, doing a great job already this morning. But Cyprian, I'm worried about him. I know. Last we heard, he left for Orlando. We haven't heard from him since.
That's a tough place to.
It's a dangerous place, Orlando.
It is.
You can get caught up in that Disneyland stuff and never get out of it.
It's
right?
true.
Zippity doo dah, zippity yay, right? My oh my, what a wonderful day! Or something. That was when I had it with Orlando.
That was it. Huh?
I was it. Was down there for a speech. Spent the night at one of those Disney hotels and put in a wake up call, and the next morning phone goes off and to pick it up, and they're singing zippity doo dah, zippity yay.
It's a whole other world.
No.
Come on, it's the happiest place on earth.
It's a whole other world, man.
Yeah. So I don't know. Worried about when he comes back.
When he comes back with a little mouse ear hat on,
yep.
We'll know that we lost him.
We'll know we lost him, exactly, yeah. Man, I tell you, everything's back in order now. You don't have to worry about Canada. You certainly don't have to worry about Toronto, because the man is back. He is cured. He's gone through therapy. He is back in charge of the city of Toronto, and Mayor Rob Ford says He is back in charge of his life.
Thanks to my treatment, I can proudly say today that I have begun the process of taking control of my life.
Yep, until the next video comes out.
The process.
Yeah.
The next video of him smoking weed in a Jamaican accent, or crack video, or whatever else is still out there.
Yeah, I'm telling you. But, we mentioned last week that Buddy Cianci is going to run again. Two-time mayor. Is going to run for a third term as mayor.
Two-time mayor, also two-time felon.
Two-time mayor, two-time felon, running for a third term mayor of Providence. And I heard on the radio driving to the airport yesterday up in southern Rhode Island that former mayor Joey Paolino, who's a good friend of mine, has endorsed Buddy. He took over once after one of those times that Buddy was accused of felony, and they had either a special election or however he succeeded Buddy, and he has now endorsed Buddy for re-election and is holding a fundraiser for him. There you go. So don't write Buddy off, man.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, he could be back. Man, we got a lot coming up. Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, will be here in studio with us to talk about the big Supreme Court decision yesterday on unions. Dahlia Lithwick from Slate will be here to talk about both of the decisions, the Hobby Lobby and the union decision. And, of course, on a Tuesday, Arthur Delaney and Igor Volsky, both here. Arthur from Huffington Post and Igor from Think Progress. Oh, what a great lineup for you this morning. And let's get right to that Hobby Lobby decision. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. In Frederick, Maryland, about an hour or so outside of Washington, D.C., a woman went to a Sonic drive-in to get lunch, and she was given her lunch along with a little plastic baggie containing marijuana.
What?
The woman complained to the manager and called the police.
I was going to say, man, I'm heading to Frederick right after the program.
You think she would just take it and run. She called the police. The manager says that she talked to an employee who had it in her apron and says it must have slipped out while she was making the food. The employee has been fired.
Oh.
But
that's sad.
Right? I mean, it's a little baggie of pot.
Yeah.
So the woman freaked out, called the cops. So anyway.
Yeah, I would love that. Would you like some pot with that burger?
Do you want fries with that?
No.
It's the only way you can actually eat it.
Yeah, there you go.
There is a new trend taking hold, except this time it's taking hold in the chimpanzee world.
Oh.
The trend is chimpanzees have started putting pieces of grass behind their ear in little groups of chimpanzees. Now, there's no reason that they're doing it. It's just a trend. It's just a fashion statement that chimps are making. This is notable because chimps have been known to fashion tools to help get food or to help build things. This is just behavior that they're following and doing it to make a fashion statement. It's the first time that animals have done that.
Not flowers. Grass?
Not flowers, little pieces of grass behind their ear.
Sounds cute.
Isn't that adorable? I think that's adorable.
It'll catch on if you watch.
And here in Washington, D.C., perhaps the godfather of fine dining is Jose Andres, who is opening a new Peruvian Chinese restaurant here in Washington, D.C. Here's the thing that you can get there that you can't get anywhere else in America if Andres gets his way. He wants to serve cuy. Cuy is a Peruvian dish of guinea pigs. They eat guinea pigs in Peru, and it's actually quite common. It's like a barbecued or roasted guinea pig, and they call it cuy. And no other restaurant in America serves it, but Andres wants to be the first. So we will keep you posted. He is trying to get it done. He just has to get it approved that he can serve guinea pigs.
He can serve them. I'm not going to eat them. No, I prefer muskrat.
Who would eat a guinea pig when you can get a delicious muskrat?
Get a delicious muskrat. That's right.
There you go.
Well, as I said at the very top of the hour, if you hear the Supreme Court has issued a 5-4 decision, this court, the Roberts Court, it's bad. It's bad news. And yesterday was bad news on two fronts, but let's talk particularly about this Hobby Lobby case. It is one of the worst decisions of this court ever. It's right up there with Citizens United, right up there with McCutcheon and the McCutcheon decision, both of those in campaign spending, of course, this having to do with the Affordable Care Act. And what the court said was, of course, now let's remember, the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. It's been the law of the land for 5 years. Almost 5 years at any rate. And what the court said is very simply that a business, a family-owned business, can break the law, can ignore the law, can break the law if they say they are doing so for religious reasons. In other words, my reading of the Bible, my faith, my phony religion tells me this is wrong, therefore I'm not going to obey the law. That's what the court said 5-4. This particular case, of course, was the owners of the great big Hobby Lobby chain, who said their religion told them that certain forms, not all, but just certain forms of contraception are wrong. Therefore, they will object as part of the health care that they, under the law, provide their employees. They object to the provision that says that you have, as part of the health care law, you have to provide contraception with no copay. Again, they say our religion tells us that is wrong. Therefore, we don't want to have to do it. And the court said, okay, if your religion tells you that, then you don't have to do it, by a 5-4 decision. There is so much wrong with that, it's hard to know where to start. I mean, it is just wrong, wrong, wrong. First of all, clearly, what they're doing is discriminating against women, saying that some women, of course, will get total coverage under their health care plan. Other women will not get full coverage under their health care plan because their boss doesn't like it. Now, it's up to those women to decide whether or not they use contraception. They're not forced to do it, and what kind of contraception they use. But the idea that some women can't get it or will have to pay for it, and other women in America will get it and won't have to pay for it, is just setting up two classes of women. And the Supreme Court is saying, basically, it's okay to discriminate if you hide it and disguise it in the form of religion. And, you know, religion has never been accepted as an excuse for not obeying the law. I mean, what if your religion, you can see where this could go, and Justice Ginsburg said this yesterday. What if a religion tells you that my religion says that people shouldn't be vaccinated, therefore no vaccinations are going to be covered? I'm going to refuse. No. I'm not going to allow health care to cover the health care I provide to cover vaccinations. I mean, take it. What if your religion said, I think speed limits are wrong? I don't know where you'd find that in the Bible, but some idiot could find it in the Bible. And by the way, yeah, just like a lot of people found slavery and segregation in the Bible, denying rights to blacks in this country based on their biblical beliefs. We're going to allow that? I mean, the possibilities of abuse under this decision yesterday are frightening. At the White House yesterday, Josh Earnest saying the president clearly, strongly disagreed with this decision.
The president believes that women should have the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care coverage, and that interference by their boss, for whatever reason, based on their religious views or just their scientific opinion, is inappropriate.
Yeah. And meanwhile, David and Barbara Green, the owners of the Hobby Lobby, thank God in heaven.
We thank God for his many blessings and ask for his continued grace to shine on our nation.
Oh, my
Boy,
God.
that tells you everything. That tells you everything wrong with that decision yesterday. Yeah. We thank God that we are able to discriminate against women, and we thank God we're able to force our religion on everybody who works for us at the Hobby Lobby. Oh, man, what an idiot. Terry O'Neill, president of the National Organization for Women, I thought summed it up as what's wrong with this decision.
The men who wrote this decision on behalf of the Supreme Court have entered into a war on women. They have become a blatantly politically activist, anti-woman political organization.
But you know what? What's really wrong with this, and let's talk about 866-55 Press, is what this does is it allows these owners of the Hobby Lobby to force their religious beliefs. It's okay that they have their religious beliefs, as misguided as they are. They can believe whatever the hell they want. But this decision allows them to force their very narrow, bigoted religious beliefs on all their employees, particularly and especially, of course, on all the women that work for them. That's what's wrong with this decision. And what really galls me is that the people who wrote this decision, Antonin Scalia, Clarence Thomas, John Roberts, Samuel Alito, and whoever the fifth one is, Anthony Kennedy. They're all the ones who say, we've got to be true to our founding fathers. We have to be true to the original Constitution. That's what we have to. Well, this decision flies in the face of our founding fathers. I mean, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, they wouldn't even allow a celebration of a Thanksgiving Day or a day of prayer when they were president of the United States. Their whole philosophical, political structure was based on the separation of church and state. And this tears down that wall entirely and says, you know, as far as obeying the law, it's just your religion is what counts, and you can force your religion on anybody else. Horrible, horrible decision, a scary decision. 866-55 Press, let's talk about it. What can we do about it here?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, we're talking about the Supreme Court decision yesterday on Hobby Lobby. A couple of members of the court said, this is not very widespread. It only applies to those family-owned companies like Hobby Lobby. But by the way, there are 82, according to Huffington Post, there are 82 of those companies which have already filed their intent to do the same thing the Hobby Lobby has done and sued the court to be able to do. And there's no way that the court is going to be able to hold it to just little family-owned companies. Big companies will be able to make the same claim because one corporation is the same as another corporation. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that Hobby Lobby's own insurance plan, of course, covers vasectomies. Yeah. According to Huffington Post, also covers Cialis or Viagra. Yeah. So if a man needs a little help here, right, that's okay, right? So if their thing is they think contraception is wrong because it prevents pregnancy, why would they also cover a vasectomy? Talk about hypocrisy.
That's
talk about
the height of hypocrisy.
Total hypocrisy. And final point on this, this once again proves anybody who tells you, or if you happen to think that it doesn't make any difference how you vote, that it's not important to vote, that it doesn't matter whether a Democrat or a Republican wins as President of the United States. This decision ought to tell you once and for all, you are wrong. You are so wrong. This proves why it's important to vote, and to me, it underscores the most important reason to vote for President of the United States is to consider appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States, which are forever. Listen, if the conservatives get one more vote on this court, we are screwed forever. And if Obama gets one more on this court, we can reverse this Roberts court. That's why it's important.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000.
you'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour. It is the Bill Press Show on a Tuesday morning, coming to you live from our nation's capital on our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Brought to you today by the International Association of Iron Workers. Good men and women of the Iron Workers Union under President Walter Wise. The sky is the limit for them, and you can find out more about their good work across this country at their website, www.ironworkers.org. He is the champion of working class Americans and the middle class. They're fighting the good fight on their behalf every day, and on a Tuesday he comes into the Bill Press Show studios to tell us all about it, the one and only Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post and HuffPost Hill. Good morning, Arthur.
That
You're
introduction
awfully good this morning here.
That introduction gets me pumped up. It's like a wrestling promo.
Yeah,
the champion of the middle class from parts unknown.
Well, you know that's you've got the Daily Delaney Downer.
Well, Mean Gene.
Who else speaks up for the downtrodden?
I don't know.
There it is, right. It's your beat, man. So let's start with this second. We've been talking about the Hobby Lobby decision so far. The second big Supreme Court decision, 5-4 on public employees.
The downward trod upon.
Yes, exactly. Downward trod upon healthcare workers. What did the court say, and what's it all mean?
So there's this phenomenon where your union will bargain on your behalf if you're in a job that the union members are in, but even though you are not in the union.
You get all the benefits.
And they would call you a free they call this freeloading or free riding.
Yeah.
But you pay dues. And previous decisions have said it's okay for unions to collect dues from non-members in these situations to prevent the problem of free riding, because you benefit from the standards that are imposed as a result of the union's bargaining. And there's this, unions are doing a lot of organizing among home health care workers, people who are paid by Medicaid, but who are basically, practically speaking, employees of the people they're serving, often their own family members, people who, for reasons of age, for example, want to live at home, can't really take care of themselves, but live at home instead of going to a nursing home. So conservative activists fought back against this and said you can't make these people pay dues for a union that does political activity. It violates their First Amendment rights, and the conservatives on the Supreme Court agreed with that. And this is basically a blow to the drive to organize home health care workers. The decision itself is not a blow. And by the way, these were deemed government workers, essentially, quasi-government workers because they're paid by Medicaid.
Paid by Medicaid, right. Right.
And that's the significance, because the public sector is the last place where there is still a significant amount of union membership. It's at about 35% compared to 6% in the private sector. So it's potentially a big deal, potentially crippling to organized labor. But they did not get the worst case scenario where the court said you can't ever make people collect dues from non-members. It is narrowly focused on this case, but it seems pretty clear that the Supreme Court is setting this up to knock down unions in a later decision.
Right.
And I think that's what that's what the dissenting justices said. Like, you clearly really hate the underlying case that you all but overturned here. It seems clear they'll come back and overturn it later, and that underlying case was called Abood.
Right. This is this is a cause that is championed by the so-called right-to-work people across the country, who have been fairly successful in the private sector unions, and now are going after the public sector unions. And this is where they're starting. They wanted it to apply across the board, to teachers, to any public employees, to any government employees. Court didn't go there yet, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly the way to think about it. Right to work.
Right. Yeah.
You're right not to be in a union.
But they did go as far as these home health care workers basically saying, as you pointed out, it's okay to be a freeloader.
Right.
It's okay to be a leech. It's okay to suck up all the benefits that the union gets for you in terms of salary or healthcare benefits or retirement benefits or paid leave or whatever, right? You can get all of that stuff for free, but if you don't want to pay dues, then you don't have to pay dues.
So you can get it.
Which I think is just, it's an outrageous decision. And basically, it sets up a whole class of scums, a whole class of scabs, a whole class of freeloaders. Yeah.
Well, the important thing is the union's ability to get those benefits for you will be diminished, and for all its members will be diminished because they'll have less resources.
Right. Yeah.
But this is like the conservative activists going for this. We're going for a headshot, basically.
Yeah.
The last holdout of unionization in the public sector, and they almost successfully imposed essentially right-to-work law on the entire public sector. But they still could. It seems likely that this will happen in a future decision. And Jeffrey Toobin, the famed CNN, New Yorker legal analyst, says that's a template they did, the Supreme Court did, when they gutted the Voting Rights Act. There was a previous decision that even liberal justices agreed with, and it was narrow. It was fairly innocuous, but then that was what they used for eventually taking away.
And they did the
voting
same.
rights.
They did the same thing in terms of campaign spending when Citizens United was bad enough. That was followed by the McCutcheon decision, which gets rid of even more limits on campaign spending, which is only the prelude to the next one, which will get rid of all limits whatsoever on campaign donations, spending or raising money, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of the way
they're targeting Democrats.
This
basically,
Robert Courts works.
It's an attack on Democrats because these unions do a lot of political spending, and they give that money to Democratic candidates
or to Republican candidates who support organized labor,
right?
Who support working men and women. There are a few Republicans who do.
Yeah,
not many, but those who do. And the unions will give money to Democrats or Republicans if they support working families. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Bad decision. I want to ask you about something else you wrote about. In Florida, unemployment insurance.
Florida in 2011 became the stingiest state in the nation with regard to unemployment insurance. They drastically cut the number of weeks of benefits the state provides. It used to be every state 26 weeks. Florida, it could go down to as few as 13 weeks.
Can they do that? I mean, I guess they did it. Obviously, they can.
Yeah.
But, so it's not a federal mandate that they have to provide 26 weeks.
They're actually this is interesting. The Recovery Act had said to states, you want to participate in these extra federal programs related to unemployment, you cannot slash your benefits. But they said you can't slash the amount, and they didn't specify the duration. So Florida and some other states were clever, and they said, well, we'll go ahead and cut the duration.
We see an opening here, right?
Yeah. And Florida and several other states, including Michigan, went ahead and did that. Michigan, the only state, not in the South, to take the opportunity. So they also said if you become unemployed and you want benefits, you have to answer 45 reading and math questions. And you have to do it on our website.
Really? You had to?
Yeah.
You had to do this?
You didn't have to pass, so they hated when reporters would call it a test. They said, it's not a test, but it's questions like, what is 37 plus 5? Only, worded in a certain way that it's as if it's, arithmetic you'd have to do in the course of a job task.
What's the point?
Well, what happened was...
I mean, what were they trying to prove?
Tens of thousands, as many as 100,000 people didn't get their benefits because the test was such a difficult... you had to have a computer and internet access. You have to be able to put up with the test. You have to remember to take the test. You could go through the process and then not realize the test was mandatory. It's mandatory even though you didn't have to pass, and then not get benefits. So 100,000 people wound up not getting benefits for one reason or another because of the test. That may have been the point all along. It was just a barrier. And there were civil rights complaints, other complaints.
But I don't understand. Was it like an IQ test? In a sense?
Sort of, yeah. But it's you didn't have to pass. You just had to do it. But just doing it was such a pain that it amounted to a barrier to lots of people. Anyway, they're getting attacked from all over. Even the Republicans in the legislature who supported this said, are we just giving the unemployed a hassle because they upgraded the system? And you may remember this from Obamacare and healthcare.gov. The website worked so badly that the governor's office and the state lawmakers were just inundated with complaints. And even the Republicans who liked the idea had to go back and change it. And they did. And so they got rid of it.
They dropped it, huh?
And what's interesting is a lot of other states have looked to Florida for reforms to their unemployment and welfare programs. A lot of other states are creating online tests. The same contractor who did Florida's test is operating in other states. So it's may sound like just some weird stuff happening in Florida, but it's important for unemployed people everywhere because Florida is sort of at the vanguard of a trend in how states administer their unemployment benefits. And this is one method, basically, of taking benefits away from people that has flopped. And that's sort of good news for the unemployed.
Yeah, except that all these other states now may do the same thing. right? Even though it flopped in Florida.
They won't do it as badly. It won't be as inept. I actually got an old copy of the test, and the questions were sort of nonsense. It would be like, what kind of data can you show in a graph with positive and negative numbers? That's one question that I remember. Do you know what that means? It sounds like gibberish, right? It was gibberish.
It is kind of gibberish. How do you answer that question?
I wouldn't know how to answer that question.
The point was there is no right answer. You just had to get through it, and it was kind of this mind-numbing slog.
No, it's totally ridiculous. Yeah, right.
So anyway, that is this sort of insane test is gone.
It's sort of like, okay, FEMA, right? There's this natural the hurricane or tornado or something. People are wiped out, but FEMA is there, and they're giving out these benefits to people, just like food or water or bread or something. Right? But before you get it, you have to pass this test, or you have to take. Maybe not pass. You have to take this test. You have to answer these 50 questions. It has nothing to do with anything.
Right. So the test is no longer mandatory, and other states are watching.
Well,
that's the key thing.
Florida finally got something right. Is that it?
I mean, the test is still there, but it's just not mandatory. You might think you still have to take it.
Or if you want to, you can take it. Oh, man. Arthur wouldn't know about it if Arthur Delaney weren't on top of it. You see? It's important that he's here every Tuesday morning. 866, one of many reasons. 866-55-PRESS. Give us a call. We'll be right back with more of the big news here on a Tuesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Here we go, 9 minutes ago, before the top of the hour, Arthur Delaney is with us from Huffington Post and the editor of HuffPost Hill. How do people get it again? HuffPost Hill?
You got to sign up for it on the internet.
All right, go to
HuffingtonPost.com, and then there's a little a bar where there are all these tabs, and you'll see HuffPost Hill there.
HuffPost Hill. It's worth getting. It's a good irreverent look at the news, all the news of the day, which Peter and I both enjoy. And it covers the entire range of things, including things we've been talking about, but also some of the political news of the day. And one of the big political stories of the day, according to HuffPost Hill, Vance McAllister, the kissing congressman who vowed he was in shame going to resign from Congress, not run again.
But has changed his mind.
Changed his mind, yes. Right.
He was against it before he was for it. That's a flip-flop.
Yeah, right.
So he was caught on camera kissing a staffer, and they're both married, so that's bad, and he's very family values.
And it wasn't just like a little peck on the cheek either.
It was like a romantic smooch.
Oh, yeah, it was, right.
And so it was a scandal.
They admit they were having an affair.
And the staffer resigned. And that's what I do not understand at all. Why the person in the subordinate staff job resigns. The congressman was also resigning, but now is unresigning and running for re-election. And he had said things like, our rights were violated. Who leaked this video? He wanted the FBI to look into it or something like that. But I really don't get why the staffer had to resign. She should have been able to keep her job if she wanted. Maybe that was not really practical. I don't know what the office dynamic was, but why would one person resign and the other person just keep being a public official? HuffPost Hills...
Because he's a pig, number one, and because it's a man's world, number two, and, she was a staffer, and so he threw her overboard, obviously, threw her under the bus. Yeah, he's a pig. And,
I'm sure
and you know what? Now it's up to the voters to decide, and I hope they throw his ass out.
Yeah, Louisiana voters are very unforgiving.
Florida.
Oh, Florida voters are very unforgiving. I'm sure.
And it's not just having the affair; it's the way he's treated her and the way he's handled the whole
I'm
thing.
sure that if he's reelected, he'll rehire her and give her a great job, right? I'm sure he'll take care of her.
HuffPost Hill's campaign slogan for him is "At least I'm not Scott Desjardins."
And Scott Desjardins.
He is the congressman from Louisiana who proved the maxim that the way to survive a political scandal is to just not resign. Because he was caught having affairs with patients. He's a doctor, and then this came out in lawsuits and divorces that he was pressuring one of them to get an abortion.
And he's still in Congress.
Yeah, he just didn't resign, so he's still there.
Or you could say, at least I'm not David Vitter. I mean, you could go down. That's a long list there, at least I'm not.
David Vitter's like running for governor.
Oh, yeah.
Scott Desjardins still has this cloud around him, but David Vitter, it's like it didn't happen because he didn't resign.
All the latest from Arthur Delaney every Tuesday morning here on the Bill Press Show. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you for having me.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just finish the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
All right, boy, that hour went by fast. 2 more hours coming up here. We start off the next hour with Igor Volsky from Think Progress. Taking a look again at those two big Supreme Court decisions yesterday and on President Obama's decision to go it alone on immigration reform. Hey, what choice does he have? Congress isn't going to do anything.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Tuesday, July 1. Yes, summer is indeed here with the 1st of July, but the show rolls on because we've got a lot to talk about this morning for sure. President Obama yesterday coming out in the Rose Garden and telling us reporters at the White House, it's very clear right now, because John Boehner has said so, that Congress will not vote on immigration reform this year. Therefore, the president said, I'm going to do it myself. I will do as much as I can do by executive action to further tighten the border and to start recognizing a path to citizenship certainly for some Americans who have been here for years and years and years, brought here by their parents, many of whom have served in the military. The president going on his own on immigration reform. Good for him. Meanwhile, most of the focus yesterday on the Supreme Court. You know, when the Supreme Court issues a 5-4 decision, it's probably a bad one. And yesterday we saw two of the worst decisions ever. And the first one, of course, the court said that the owners of Hobby Lobby and other businesses, if their religion tells them that contraception is wrong, they don't have to obey the Affordable Care Act. They can break the law and use their religion as an excuse. You can see where that could lead. And in the second decision, the court also said that some public employees, home health care workers, can be leeches, can be freeloaders. They can take advantage of all the benefits that a union provides without having to pay any union dues. Another horrible, horrible decision. And the United States, very excited, gearing up today for the next big match in the World Cup. USA versus Belgium at 4 o'clock Eastern Time today. We'll all be there watching that game. And it's good to have you here with us watching and listening this morning. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Your comments welcome on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
When the Supreme Court issues a 5-4 decision, you know it's bad news, and it sure was yesterday. Hey, good morning, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. On a Tuesday, July 1, yes, indeed, no doubt about it. Summer is here. We're into July already. Leading up to the big July 4 this Friday. So good to see you today, and it's good to be back with you. I tried to get back from the beach yesterday, and I just couldn't make it in time. So Peter Ogburn had to fill in. Thank you, Peter.
I felt bad for you. I know how hard you worked to get back here.
I did. I tried.
Day at the beach. I know. Poor guy.
But here we are this morning. Good to see you today. Thank you for being here on your local progressive talk radio station. Thanks for being here on the TuneIn with us on the TuneIn app, on Free Speech TV, and on our video stream worldwide at youtube.com/TalkerTV. And we know you all tuned in, not so much for me or for Peter or for any of the rest of the gang. You tuned in on a Tuesday morning to see Igor Volsky, managing editor of Think Progress. Hello, hello.
Hello,
what would we
good
do
morning.
without you
good
on the Tuesdays?
morning.
I mean,
yeah,
God,
well, it's a good and big day.
we couldn't get started. Although,
Right.
you know, someday you may take a day off too, and just be sure you just
Don't give him any
Ooh,
ideas.
a day off.
Don't
Really?
give him
I can
any
do that
ideas.
too.
No, you
just
can't.
yes, you can, as long as it's not a Tuesday. That's the point I was
Yeah,
going to
right.
make. Okay, indeed. Yeah, you know.
I'll just broadcast from the beach.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah. Right.
In the sand, in the water. I mean, whatever works.
Won't get me doing that. It's one or the other for me. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, guys. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey.
Alicia Cruz there. If you got a phone, you got a message, pick up the phone, call Elisa, 866-55-PRESS. And if we're looking good on the video stream and looking good on Free Speech TV, it's thanks to Monty Kensler here filling in for Cyprian Bolding again this week. President Obama, big celebration of Pride at the Pride Month, I guess, at the White House.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Were you there?
I was not there, but I saw the food looked very good. On the pictures, the food looked delicious. They had little sliders.
Yes.
I became very hungry when I saw it.
They have good food at the White House for those parties. They do.
Delicious.
Gays
love to eat, so it's perfect.
Speaking of the food, the president did say goodbye yesterday to the White House chef at last night's event. Bill Youssef is leaving, and the president said that his pies are so good for maybe one particularly good reason.
We call Bill the crust master because his pies, I don't know what he does, whether he puts crack in them or... but...
No, he doesn't.
Just to clarify.
I just want to make this clear.
He does not put crack in the pie.
Bill Yosef does not put crack in the pie.
No.
No. Now, pot in the pies.
That all butter crust.
Crack in pies. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing for him to say.
Yeah.
And you can see the First Lady right away do, we better clarify this once and for all.
Second term, baby.
That is not nutritious, she explained. Does not meet the new nutrition guidelines.
Yeah, let's move. You're not doing a whole lot of moving.
Yeah.
Take that crack out of the pie.
All right, Igor Volsky here with us. His first half hour will be joined a little bit later by Dahlia Lithwick from Slate magazine. And then also in the next hour, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, one of our nation's great labor leaders, here in studio with us. But first,
This
we have
is
to
the
start with
full
the
court
big
press.
stories.
Yes, indeed.
Yes,
indeed. Just a couple of big stories making news today. Today is do or die time for the United States soccer team. They take on Belgium at 4 o'clock Eastern time. I encourage everyone to watch that.
How's Belgium? Are they? Well, I guess they're
pretty good.
Because
they're pretty good.
They have that goalie who's the best in the world.
They have this amazing goalie.
Yeah.
They have a very good team. It will
See
be
how I
a
knew that?
very tough match. Meanwhile, Luis Suarez, the biter, right, who was suspended for several games by FIFA because he bit the Italian
for 4
player.
months.
Yeah. Well, and 9 international games.
Just a little bite.
He made an apology yesterday on Twitter to Chiellini, Giorgio Chiellini, the man that he bit. He sent out a tweet, says, "My apologies to Chiellini," and had a little apology note that he had written, says, "I vow to the public there will never be another incident." Another biting incident. Meanwhile, Chiellini responded, said, "It's all forgotten. I hope FIFA will reduce your suspension."
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Sportsmanship on Twitter. How about it?
Maybe they should put one of those little masks.
The muzzle?
Hannibal Lecter mask.
Like, yeah, Hannibal Lecter mask
Just to be safe.
or something. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Community lives on, the NBC TV show, which was announced they would not be renewing for a 6th season. Turns out it is going to live on Yahoo. Yahoo is going to pick it up. 13 new episodes, helmed by Dan Harmon, the creator and executive producer, starring Joel McHale and everybody else. But this is a show that had been canceled already a couple of times, and it just continues to be picked up. People like it very much. They're just not watching enough to actually give it ratings. But Yahoo will pick it up, and you can expect the fall. You will see some new episodes.
And this is really the first Yahoo show.
Exactly.
To the first time they're kind of doing this thing, this kind
Original
of Netflix
content.
original content
Netflix,
idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And are you ready for a Biznut?
No.
The Biznut?
No.
It is. You've heard of the Cronut?
Oh, God.
This is a biscuit donut hybrid that Carl's Jr. is selling in California. It is exactly what it sounds like. Biscuit dough that is fried in the shape of a donut, topped with frosting and sprinkles. You could buy 2 for just $1.89 at the Carl's Jr's in California.
You know, I think that actually has crack in it.
That actually does have crack. That is actually crack.
Heart attack.
Yeah. Seriously. There you go. I'm sure that if it takes off, they'll put it in.
I don't get all these combinations. I mean, you announce a different one just at least once a week.
I think Peter must be on some newsletter or something where he gets all this information firsthand.
Blank nut Google News alert on lockdown.
That's right.
Yeah. I got it on lockdown.
You heard it here first. All right. 13 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed. So, Igor, yesterday, so much attention to the 2 Supreme Court decisions. Want to talk about one of them with you for sure. But meanwhile, the president walking out into the Rose Garden and just about had it up to here with Congress on immigration reform and said, screw it, I'm going on my own.
Yeah, he announced that Boehner, the House Speaker, told him last week they're not going to move on immigration at all this year. And he said, look, if you guys aren't going to do anything, I'm going to kick off a new campaign to do everything in my power to pass a series of executive orders to fix the immigration system. Now, this came after he met with immigration activists for about an hour who have been calling on him to expand his DACA program. That's this administrative relief, easing deportation standards for the so-called dream-eligible kids who were brought into this country
by their parents.
They have this relief, this temporary legal status, and activists have been calling on him to expand it to adults. That's about 5 million adults who are parents of these DACA eligible children. who are also here illegally. They also came to this country illegally. Now, it's unclear if he's going to do that because he told the activists, look, I'm not going to be able to do everything you want, but this is a serious effort, and I'm going to do everything I can within my legal parameters. And he asked Jay Johnson, the Homeland Security Secretary, and Eric Holder, the Attorney General, to come up with a list by the end of the summer of what he can do, and he promised to enact it swiftly.
Yeah. By the way, so this follows Boehner announcing that he was going to file a lawsuit against the president for basically stepping outside of his legal authority and issuing too many executive orders. So, in effect, this was Obama's response to that lawsuit.
Yeah,
correct?
and he indirectly referred to it. He said, look, the best way for me to issue less executive orders is if you guys actually did something and passed bills. Then I wouldn't have to issue these orders because you would take legislative action. And that's what I want to see, bipartisan legislative action, because that's actually going to stand past my presidency. That's going to be a permanent fix to the problem. This is just something I can do in the interim, and it's going to be very limited to what's actually needed.
And the other part of that call, the president did not report the call to John Boehner, or whoever initiated the call, where Boehner told him that Congress would not be voting at all this year on immigration reform. Boehner's put out a statement saying he told the president the reason they were not going to have any votes on immigration reform is because they did not trust him to enforce the law, which I find, just astounding that any speaker would tell the president of the United States, we don't trust you to enforce the law.
And of course, Democrats have said, okay, if you want to use that flimsy excuse, why don't you put a timer in the law that says it doesn't go into effect until 2016 when Obama's out there? But that's excuse number 3,537.
For doing nothing.
For doing nothing. And Obama said there are votes in the House between Democrats and Republicans to pass the Senate immigration bill that passed last year. There are enough votes to pass it in the House today.
Of course.
All they have to do is bring it to the floor and an up and down vote. But the irony here, Bill, is...
And it would pass because all the Democrats would vote for it, and enough Republicans would vote for
to get over that magic number, to get the majority. But look, the funny thing here is everyone said after Eric Cantor, the House Majority Leader, lost his election in Virginia, immigration reform is dead, it's over. But it looks like, at least today, that it's hastened Obama's hand and is pushing him to take more executive action.
Yeah. And you know what? Good for him for doing so, as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely. Because you can't wait on this Congress to do anything about anything.
Yeah, and you can't win with these guys either.
By the way, it also belies the what some people at the White House said, that after Kevin McCarthy was elected as a majority, well, this gives us hope.
Yeah.
Maybe we can bring up... No,
McCarthy's going to trip over himself running to the immigration reform,
McCarthy's already proven that he's going to be just as much a Tea Partier as Eric Cantor was.
Yeah, he feels he needs to move to the right to, stay current with the conservative wing of the party.
On the Supreme Court yesterday, the one story that caught my eye is the lead story on Think Progress this morning, that Hobby Lobby said, our religion tells us we need this exemption to this requirement of the Affordable Care Act. You write that this decision could actually hurt people of faith.
Yeah, well, this is from our religion correspondent, Jack Jenkins, who had this great point to say, look, the people who are celebrating this decision are actually in the very minority of religious Americans. We're talking about white evangelicals who support this idea of contraception should be limited, or that employers should be able to deny contraception to women. And even if you look within that group, 40% of white evangelicals tell pollsters that no, employers shouldn't be able to deny women access to contraception. So you're talking about 60% of white evangelicals who interpret the Bible and their religious convictions to mean that, yes, Hobby Lobby has this right to deny birth control. But the overwhelming majority of Jews, of Catholics, of other Christian denominations disagree and actually read the Bible to say that every person has their own religious convictions and beliefs, and that this decision now says that the employer's religious interpretations are superior to that of the employee, and they have actually called it dangerous because it again trumps the religious convictions of the worker who may believe that they want to use birth control. And so you look at it kind of holistically, and it actually undermines the religious rights of the majority of religious Americans and benefits the very few who hold this as a strong religious conviction.
And gives those few bosses the right to force their religious views on everybody else.
Everybody else.
Certainly on all their employees.
And of course, the big question is how many women are going to be affected? Nobody really knows that number. You have Hobby Lobby and the other company who filed suit. Then you have about 70 companies who agreed with those organizations.
Right.
But it's a pretty wide net. The closely held companies that Alito referred to in his majority opinion, that's like 91% of businesses. That's a lot of companies. But you look at it and you think probably a very small number actually have this objection. A very small number will probably deny this kind of service. And the hope now is, and this is what the administration alluded to in the briefing, is that now they can take regulatory action to extend birth control coverage through insurers to those women who would be denied by Hobby Lobby.
But also, as Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg pointed out, there's no way that they could limit this to those family-owned companies.
Well, that's, that's like what's ahead, right? What's the road ahead? Is Alito says it's going to definitely be limited to where this doesn't extend to blood transfusions and other kinds of objections. But she says that there's no principle in the decision that's a limiting factor. And so you could see down the road other lawsuits make their way to the court.
Alito,
with other restrictions.
Alito's just wrong. I mean, it's just like saying you can be a little bit pregnant. No, you can't. No, you're pregnant. You're pregnant. I mean, this decision. If companies can do this, if CEOs can do this, then in one company they can do it in another company. Yeah. And if they can do it for one thing, they can do it. They can do it for another. Here's my question: why is it that Hobby Lobby, these people, their faith tells them that because the certain form of birth control may interfere with procreation, their faith is against it. Okay, why does their insurance cover vasectomies?
Because I guess that's not an abortification as they see it, so that's okay and that's fine. But those the
maybe
Plan
it's because
B,
it's for men, not for women,
well,
Maybe.
They would argue that the distinction there, Bill, is it doesn't kill a life. Okay.
Has something to do with preventing pregnancy, I think. I mean, the hypocrisy.
Well, they cover the pill. It's just the IUD and the Plan B and a few of the other contraceptive methods that they have a problem.
No way you can defend this decision, in my humble opinion. Igor Volsky here from Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. We'll be right back. Join the conversation anytime at 866-55-PRESS. Weigh in on one of the worst Supreme Court decisions ever of this Roberts Court.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Already 27 minutes after the hour, Dahlia Lithwick from Slate covers the Supreme Court for Slate. Will be here in studio with us for the next half hour. Igor, we talked a little bit about the Supreme Court with Hobby Lobby. The Supreme Court actually did something right, got something right yesterday,
something right before
according
those
to
two
Think Progress.
decisions.
No.
They refused to hear a case about challenging California's ban against using ex-gay therapy for minors.
Oh.
They're not going to hear that one.
Oh,
so the ban saying you can't do reparative therapy in California on minors is in place for now.
You mean so Marcus Bachmann will have to shut down his California operations?
There's no evidence of that.
What will he do for a living?
Oh, my goodness. Especially now that she's retiring. You're right.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
They're going to shut him down.
Poor guy.
They ought to shut him down. Oh, my God. All right. Well, that's good. We're glad the court didn't take that case. And Igor Volsky, thank you again for coming in today.
Thank you.
See you next week.
This
ThinkProgress.org.
is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up.
Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday morning, July 1. Here we are live in our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the Laborers International Union of North America, the good men and women of the Laborers Union under President Terry O'Sullivan. Building a Better America, that's their website too, LiunaBuildsAmerica.org, L-I-U-N-A, Liuna, buildsamerica.org. Most of the news this morning focused on 2 big decisions by the Supreme Court yesterday, and if you're talking Supreme Court, nobody knows it better than the Supreme Court correspondent for Slate, Dahlia Lithwick, who is here in studio with us this morning. It's good to see you, Dahlia. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So here we go. Let's start with Hobby Lobby 5-4 decision, which the Samuel Alito says no, it was a very narrow decision that only applies for certain kinds of birth control and for certain companies that have this ability to limit this health care that they offer. Is it that narrow a decision in your view?
That's certainly the fight we're having this morning. I think it mirrors the fight, the difference between the majority opinion, where Alito says nothing to see here. This is not going to bleed into, corporations that aren't closely held. This is certainly not going to implicate religious employers who are Jehovah's Witnesses who want to withhold blood transfusions. It's just these facts, move on. And then this dissent by Ginsburg saying,
blistering dissent.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Are you nuts? How do you cabinet to this? And so I think one of the issues that everybody's trying to puzzle through is who has the right of it? Is it really just going to be confined to the handful of corporations that have an objection to a handful of contraceptive devices or methods, or is this going to really open the floodgates for religious liberty claims for every employer, not just in closely held family corporations, but every corporation in America? And I think, as Igor said in the last segment, because there's no limiting principle other than the assertion that there's a limit, there's a real question as to why going forward this wouldn't be invoked by every religious employer who has an objection to any neutral, generally applicable law that offends their constitution, their religious views. So I don't see beyond this assertion that this is a one-time only case. I mean, last time the court said this is a one-time only case, they installed the president in the White House, right? That was Bush v. Gore.
Yeah,
and so I think it's just, you can't simply assert without laying out the legal architecture for why this stops here, that this stops here.
The first thought I had when I heard this decision, when they said that corporations who believe this can therefore limit, is that they're sort of saying that Mitt Romney was right. Corporations are people, aren't they?
Well,
I mean, in effect, they're saying corporations have this right to exercise this limit.
That's absolutely, that's the first prong of the legal analysis that's set out, is that he had to make a determination that for purposes of, it's important to understand this doesn't come up as a First Amendment case. It comes up under the RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is a 1993 statute, much more robust protection of religion than you'd get under the First Amendment. But the first thing the court has to do is say under RFRA, which expressly applies to persons, that a corporation is a person. And he makes short work of that. He says, look at the statute, look at the Dictionary Act. This corporation is a person, done. And Ginsburg, coming back in dissent, says you have just given religious exercise laws the idea not just that a corporation is a person, but that that corporation can then exercise religion. And that's just baffling to her. She says this is the first time in history that we've said that corporations can have a faith. And that's astonishing that, the implications of that are unbelievable. And the Dictionary Act doesn't cover that.
So under this decision, if my faith tells me, for example, that vaccination is wrong, or that slavery is right, or that segregation is right, then why can't I exercise that?
Well, again, Alito asserts that that's not going to happen. He is explicit.
Won't happen?
What
planet? What planet does he live on?
That this is only going to apply to the contraception mandate. He does say, we have laws on the books that would prohibit employers from discriminating on the basis of race. He doesn't say anything about discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation. He doesn't say that, but I think the implication is, look, we can protect everything else, but this is different. And under that, I think there is this tendency in the majority opinion to say, because this isn't really all that important. There's a sense in which he says in the opinion, we're going to just assume for argument's sake that the government interest in affording women unpaid contraception is important. We'll give you that. But then he goes on to sort of completely dismiss all the reasons that the government thinks this is compelling. And these are life and death things. I mean, an IUD costs $1,000, right? If you're a minimum wage worker and there are medically indicated reasons that you need an IUD and not the pill, None of that comes up in the opinion. It's as though we're still in this world where this is a matter of going to the drugstore and buying a condom, case closed, without any recognition that this was HHS working with, the medical professionals to say these list of 20 contraceptive devices and methods are absolutely critically necessary, not just for contraception, as though that's a bad thing, but for the basic preventive health of women. And there's a reason 99% of women in America think that contraception is important. We all use it. And the fact that the court just elides over that question and says, we're going to assume this is an important interest for the government without probing. And in fact, there are places where he literally he says the government says it has an interest in public health and gender equality. And he puts them in quotation marks as though these are not legitimate interests. And then he says, well, if we were talking about vaccinations, that would be really an important government interest. That would curb the spread of disease. As though you can sort of pick and choose which are important health interests.
Dismissive of contraception as an important health interest.
Beyond dismissive, it's almost as though this is a non-issue, as though he has to do this feint to say, we get it, you think it's important, but you have other alternatives, without understanding that this is the aggregated view of the medical community, the scientific community, the health community, that first world countries afford women contraception.
I hate to go there, but I'm going to go there anyhow. To what extent, Sonia Sotomayor being the one exception, is this the Catholic versus the Jews on the court?
I hate to go there, too. Charlie Pierce went there last night in an article that I think is worth
Because this is a decision
reading.
only the Vatican could like.
Well, and I think it's almost impossible, Bill, to look at it in isolation from the other big religious freedom case, which was the legislative prayer case, Town of Greece, which came down earlier this term. And that was the case that said that a town that opened their town council meetings with a prayer that for years pervasively was Christian, only Christian,
yes,
a handful of episodes after the suit was filed where they let non-Christians pray, but clearly sectarian prayer, and the court says it's okay.
Yeah,
and it's the exact same sense of...
Was that also 5-4?
Also 5-4.
Same 5-4.
Same exact 5-4. And that same sort of, let's be honest, anybody who has a problem with this doesn't really get it, that America has kind of always been a Christian country. And this valence of you all with your little, objections to this need to get thicker skin. And just, I think this, all these cases, Bill, you have to look at as, imagine if it's somebody who is an imam, giving that prayer. Imagine in this case, instead of the Green family, fundamentalist Christians, that this is a guy who believes passionately in Sharia law and simply wants his employees to all wear burqas. The case completely changes when you do that. And I think failing to recognize that there are not serious and unserious religions in America, there's just religion, is hugely problematic, both in the prayer case and in this case.
The other thing that I find striking about this is that the people who ruled in the majority are those, for the most part, who, they include certainly the so-called originalists on the court. And if you go back to the Founding Fathers, the last thing they wanted was for anybody to be able to force their religious views on everybody else. I mean, this is antithetical to Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and, any of the thinkers among the founders, certainly across the board. They don't get it, right?
Well, I think that...
this trashes, to me, the First Amendment.
I think that this is really a product of a few decades of this David Barton style American revisionist history that says, Thomas Jefferson always wrote Christ's name on his letter. This entirely fictionalized history that says that all the framers were in accord that this was going to be a Christian country.
And there's no such thing as a wall of separation of church and state.
There's no such thing as a wall, and that, in fact, Christianity was fundamental to their basic ideas. And I think that folks have really bought that. The fact that the court has bought any element of that would be terrifying. But I think that there's just a sense more and more that the framers were Christians. They sought to have a Christian country, that they were not, in fact, fleeing from religious oppression, which is, of course, the thing that scared them most.
Now, there has been talk that, and the Washington Post this morning says, the court did this, it was wrong, now the Congress has to fix it. But to what extent, particularly with this Congress, could they write a bill that would overturn this and get it passed. I mean,
right.
It ain't going to happen, right?
Congress can't, fix dog catching. The idea that they're going to, they're going to actually write into law something that would afford contraception to women is unthinkable. And I think it's also, a few people have pointed out the paradox that what the majority did in this case was create a single-payer system where the government actually finances healthcare, contraceptive healthcare for women, which is
that's
amazing.
what Alito says. You can, if you want it, you can pay. Then the government will pay. That is interesting. I hadn't thought about that. And finally, before we move on to the other big case, is it true that Hobby Lobby's healthcare covers vasectomies and Viagra and?
That's true, and it's also true that until 2012, when they filed suit, they also covered some of the contraceptive methods that they then realized they didn't cover and they objected to. But up until they filed suit, Hobby Lobby actually covered some of the things that they now say they object to. And so it looks as though this suit was kind of crafted around after the facts, and I think it's really, really important to realize, and this I think is my takeaway, Bill, from this case, that the idea that the folks who believe that this is a Christian country and that, the oppression of Christians in the, town square and at work is this sort of goal of the godless rest of us, I think to suggest that they are not going to be emboldened by this decision is just the most short-sighted thing. I mean, the fact is they were emboldened to bring this suit. The fact is they prevailed on a legal theory nobody had ever heard of or taken seriously. The idea that after winning, they take their poker chips and go home, to me, is unimaginable. I think, the Wall Street Journal already had a piece up last night saying these are other companies that are now thinking of denying contraception. And we know that there are companies who are not just going to deny 4 kinds of contraception, but all 20. So the idea...
I saw a number this morning, 82 companies have said, we're on board, here we go. Oh, yeah. Katie bar the door. Dahlia Lithwick, Supreme Court correspondent for Slate, in studio with us. Your questions, your comments on this wretched decision. And wait till you hear about the next one. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, joins us in the next hour. Before we move along, Dahlia Lithwick here, Supreme Court correspondent for Slate. Before we move along, Heather from DeKalb, Illinois, with a quick question. Hi, Heather. Good morning.
Well, hi, Bill. I don't really have a question. I just have commentary. I don't think they realized what a can of worms they opened up when they made this decision of the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg made a great point, which was, what about other religions that don't believe in certain types of medical practices? Does this now open up the precedent for them to come down on things like, say, Muslims that disagree with pig-derived medications, or Scientologists that don't agree with a certain medical procedure? So it's just a real slippery slope. They opened up a can of worms. I personally am disgusted in the decision, but I've been disgusted with the Supreme Court now for a few years. So.
Yeah. All right, Heather. Yeah, I think you made that point earlier, too. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg made that point, right, Dahlia?
And Heather, underneath your point, there's this other really important point, which is that the court has a longstanding tradition of not probing both the science underlying those religious convictions and how deeply held the religious convictions are. So the court takes the Green family and the Hahn family in this case at their word, both that, in other words, there's no discussion of, does the IUD cause abortions? What do we do about the fact that all of medical science disputes that? That's stipulated. The Hahns and the Greens win. And in addition to conceding the science, the court concedes the religious faith, right? They say, we're not probing how deeply felt these beliefs are, or whether you're making this up as a pretext to avoid paying. We assume. So I think once the court assumes both that your science is right and that your faith is true, then how can you not assume the same for Jehovah's Witnesses, Christian Scientists, Scientologists? And I think really what worries me about the case, I said this at the beginning, is either that the court is saying, well, but these interests, these government interests aren't really compelling, this isn't important, or that these other religions, Jehovah's Witnesses, Christian Scientists, Wiccans, are not real religions. You have to assume one or the other to avoid having the outcome that Heather's talking about, which is opening the floodgates for every religious objector to object to everything and the court not scrutinize it.
Right. How long before we see the next case which takes this the next step? I mean,
well, there are cases already in the pipeline, important cases. This case had to do with for-profit corporations. There are a lot of cases, as you know, the Little Sisters, all those cases that are challenging not just the contraception ban, but the accommodation.
These are religious nonprofit organizations.
So these are, Catholic hospitals, schools. The Little Sisters are nuns. And what they're saying is that the accommodation that the Obama administration gave them, so they would not have to afford contraception to their workers, even that violates their constitutional rights. And so imagine, if you will, Alito saying in this opinion, there's an accommodation here. And because there's an accommodation, just give it to the for-profits. As these cases are coming up very, very soon, in which the not-for-profits are saying, we won't accept this accommodation. We won't take it. It still violates our religious conscience rights.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
I know. The more I hear about it, the more I hate it. Dahlia, so good to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. It is slate.com. Slate.com. where you can find out even more about this decision and the Public Employees Union decision, which we never got around to discussing. We'll get to that later in the program. Thanks so much, Dahlia. Great to see you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, what do you say? You know, hour number 3 is coming up. I know we're going to lose you on Free Speech TV. Too bad. Sorry about that. But you have an alternative, and that's our video stream. Go over to youtube.com/TalkerTV, TAWKR-TV. In the next hour, one of the nation's outstanding labor leaders, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, will be here in studio with us to talk about the big Supreme Court decision yesterday. And Sam Baker from the National Journal will be here to talk about Hobby Lobby. Lots more coming up in hour number 3. Stay with us.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new. If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years...
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, President Obama, meetings at the White House today. He gets a daily briefing this morning at 10 o'clock and then at 11 o'clock. Assembling the entire cabinet for a cabinet meeting at the White House this afternoon. He goes over to Georgetown, to that beautiful Georgetown waterfront park, to deliver some remarks today on the economy, talking jobs and the economy there in Georgetown. We will be assembling in the briefing room for our daily briefing from Press Secretary Josh Earnest at 1 o'clock in the next hour. Continuing our focus today on the Supreme Court's 2 major decisions yesterday, Sam Baker from National Journal here to talk about the Hobby Lobby decision, and then President Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, coming along also in studio a little bit later to talk about the big union decision yesterday. Hour number 3 coming up. Hope to have you stay along.
This is the Bill Press Show.
you wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. There was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. Truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
If you hear it's 5-4, you know it's probably a bad decision. And there were two of them yesterday. Good morning, everybody. Tuesday, July 1. So good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us here on The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital on our studio on Capitol Hill, here in Washington, D.C., just down the street from the United States Capitol building and just down the street from the Supreme Court. Last day of the session yesterday, saving two of the big bombshells until the very end, as they normally do. We'll talk about both of them this hour with all of you, and thank you for joining us. You can join the conversation anytime by giving us a call, of course, at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Good to be there with you this morning on your local progressive talk radio station, on the TuneIn app, YouTube, and on our video stream worldwide, youtube.com/talker, TAWKR TV. I'm back with you today, having taken the day off, and we thank Peter Ogburn for filling in yesterday and keeping us going here.
Nice to have you back, sir.
Thank you, sir. Peter Ogburn here with Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Leading our team. Alicia Cruz has the phones covered, and Monty Counselor here with us, our videographer this week, filling in again for Cyprian Bolding, who is, I don't know, just lost.
We don't know where anyway. They just fell off, yeah.
Lost in Orlando. What a place to get lost, anyhow. And to take a look at the first big decision of the Supreme Court yesterday, a good friend of the program, back from the National Journal, Sam Baker, healthcare reporter for the National Journal. Hi, Sam. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And today, of course, the big event of the day is, we're all waiting for it, 4 o'clock this afternoon, East Coast time, USA versus Belgium.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I know. Very exciting. It's do or die, right? I mean, we got to
win or go home.
No more of this. You can lose, but still
tie.
move forward. No.
Everybody's not a winner anymore.
That's right. That's
no,
right.
right.
And there have already been some shootouts on penalty kicks, which I love. It's so exciting.
I know. And last week, of course, the last game that we played was the big game against Germany. And it was noon East Coast time, which meant it was 9 o'clock on the West Coast time, but already the bars were packed on the West Coast, and Jimmy Kimmel had a TV crew out there to see who was smashed that early in the morning.
9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Drew from Iowa.
Are you already hammered? Is Drew from Iowa already hammered? Let's find out.
Yes.
Anything you want to say to the fans?
Yeah. Number 1, World War I, World War II, USA.
We won those. He's the bar historian.
That's great.
Not that we bear any grudges.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
Not that we haven't moved on or anything.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, that's what that match was all about.
Yeah.
World War I, World War II.
People were holding on to some old grudges for that match, man.
Yeah. I love it, the fact that the crowd decided. There was no doubt about the crowd. Yeah, he's hammered.
Yes. Yeah. Are you hammered? Yes.
So watch out. All right. Sam Baker here with us for the first half hour. Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, in studio with us in the second half hour. But first, start off with Peter and the big stories of the day.
Yes, indeed, the big stories of the day. We'll pick it up right there. USA soccer against Belgium today at 4 o'clock. One person here in America, one group here in America we know is rooting hard for the Americans is Waffle House. Yesterday, Waffle House sent out a tweet. They said, "We don't believe in Belgian waffles." Belgium, known for their waffles. Right here, we make our own waffles, and they're pretty fine. Thank you very much. Although, on any other day of the week, I'd probably take a Belgian waffle over a Waffle House waffle. But today, damn it, it's Waffle House or die.
So if you really want to, to celebrate in the most patriotic way, you go to the Waffle House.
Don't eat a Belgian waffle, eat a Waffle House waffle, which is anything but Belgian, I can assure you. Yesterday, we got a look at some cable TV news ratings, and Fox News was on top yet again. This marks the 50th straight quarter that they have been on top and the 150th straight month, which is a big deal. Total viewers for Fox News, the top show was The O'Reilly Factor. Megyn Kelly came in second, followed by The Five, Special Report with Brett Baer, and On the Record with Greta Van Susteren. Still performing after all these years, and even though we know how deceptive some of their
What I
stuff
find interesting about that lineup, though, is that The Five, was just thrown together as a little Band-Aid when Glenn Beck left.
It's like a replacement show.
And it has become a big deal show. Third most popular show on Fox News.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It is.
And who says that Congress isn't
That's because of big-ass Bob Beckel.
That's it. Who says that Congress isn't getting anything done? Congress got something done, reported in the National Journal by Shane Goldmacher. Congress got together and did away with a little provision that says that they have to disclose when they take all expense paid trips, all around the world. Whenever a friend or a donor or someone gives them a trip,
or they go on junkets,
they have to disclose that it was a gift given to them or how much money was spent. They no longer have to do that. That was taken away earlier this week by Congress. They don't have to put it on their annual financial disclosure forms.
How could they do that?
Because they're Congress?
Well, because,
Well, and they have their priorities straight, obviously.
Yeah. Let's not get immigration done. Let's sue the president. Oh, and let's also make sure that no one knows that we have to disclose.
And let's take more secret trips.
Yep. Absolutely.
Paid for by somebody else. Yeah. All right. Peter, thank you. Sam Baker, the decision yesterday, a 5-4 decision on Hobby Lobby. What? Gosh, where did we start with this decision? There's so much wrong with it as far as I'm concerned. But you are the healthcare reporter for National Journal. As far as the Affordable Care Act is concerned, how many people does this impact, and what does it say?
It sort of depends how the administration handles it going forward, and to an extent it depends on employers, because the upshot here is that employers now can opt out of this requirement if they can prove or say that they have a religious objection to contraception. So it depends how many employers try to take advantage of that. There are good reasons to think it might not be that many, because covering contraception is really cheap compared to the cost of covering a pregnancy in your healthcare plan. And it depends how the administration, there was some pretty clear suggestion in the ruling yesterday that they might be able to sort of use a middle ground here where insurance companies would pay for the coverage instead of the employers, which would mean that, the administration could make up a whole lot of the coverage losses that otherwise would come from this decision. So there are ways to get around it.
There are ways to get around it. But in terms of how many companies, And this is a dispute, obviously, between Alito, who wrote the decision, and particularly Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg with her dissent. But can they really limit it to so-called closely held companies? I mean, already, what I saw this morning somewhere, 82 different companies have said, "Oh, we agree with that. We're going to do the same thing." So doesn't this open sort of like the floodgates?
Yeah, I think, legally there would need to be a separate decision for it not to be closely held companies, because that was a big part of the rationale here, was that if you're just a family and you own a company, sure, the company's religion can be your religion, but if you have, 1 million stockholders, that might not be quite as easy. But obviously this is the way that things evolve in the courts, right? They decide one thing and then somebody comes back and asks them to go a little bit further, and a little bit further. So I think that's what Justice Ginsburg was saying in the dissent, and that is usually that's what happens with all cases, right? Somebody comes back and says, well, because you did that, you need to do this next thing. So yeah, I'm sure you'll see at least people give it a shot.
Okay, and so every other aspect of the Affordable Care Act is still intact, correct?
Yes.
Right. They carved out this exception and not for all contraception, but for certain forms of contraception.
It could be all forms of contraception.
Oh, could.
These companies only objected to a few, but that's them. I think that based on this, closely held companies, again, would probably be able to say that they had a religious objection to all of it.
Okay. And the other point that was raised by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think correctly, is how can they limit it to a religious objection to contraception? What about religious objections to other forms of healthcare, be it vaccination or even other issues?
Right. And that was something that really played out during the oral arguments, too, as Justice Kagan was really aggressively raising this question. Somebody will have a religious... If you look at the contraception mandate as something designed sort of as a protection and an equalizing force for women's healthcare, there are a lot of laws that require employers to do or provide certain things under those grounds. And someone surely has a religious objection to the minimum wage or to various non-discrimination policies. Alito kind of said yesterday, I don't really think that that'll happen, and those suits would probably fail because the government would be able to show that it has a much stronger interest in enforcing a non-discrimination rule than it has in administering contraception coverage in this way, which, there's probably something to that latter argument. But again, it's always one thing happens and then someone looks for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So we'll have to see what that'll be, but somebody will try something.
Terry O'Neill, who's the president of the National Organization for Women, speaking to reporters after the decision came down yesterday, I thought made a good point about this isn't the first time that people have tried to use religion to support certain pretty offensive political views. Here's Terry O'Neill.
There are some beliefs that are so heinous that government should not respect them. No way, no how. Apartheid in South Africa was justified on religious grounds. The Southern Baptist Convention justified slavery and later Jim Crow and segregation on religious grounds. We don't accept that as a society anymore, and we should not accept plain out gender bigotry. Withholding basic health care from women is bigotry, plain and simple. We should not accept it, no matter how sincerely the belief is held.
So isn't this dangerous ground when you say, well, I just, that may be the law, but, my religion tells me I disagree with that based on my religious beliefs, therefore I don't have to follow that aspect of the law.
Yeah, again,
talk about a slippery slope.
And that's the point that Justice Ginsburg was making. Alito said in the majority decision, this is pretty narrow. This is just about contraception. And she said, this is a very broad, huge precedent that you're setting here that's going to have repercussions for decades to come. And I think that there is probably a lot of foresight to that. On the other hand, though, you can kind of see Alito kept making the point, the Obama administration isn't enforcing this uniformly. There's an exemption for Catholic universities, or a partial exemption. There's an exemption for churches already. So the administration, before this ever even went to court, has taken some steps to accommodate other religious objections to contraception. So, that did make it easier for him to come in and say, you've already done it. You already agree that this is a valid reason, and that certainly made it easier to write yesterday's decision.
Yeah, but as Dahlia Lithwick pointed out in the last hour for us, those religious organizations are now suing because they don't think the accommodation that the Obama administration has given them goes far enough.
And also, they are at least somewhat religious in their mission. They don't just sell arts and crafts or cabinets. It's, you're either a church or a Catholic university that has a religious component to your mission, even if it's not just a church.
Right. Now, whatever happened in all of this to the First Amendment? Whatever happened to the fact that you cannot, or that you can't force if you're my boss, you can't force your religious views on me? To me, it seems the justice didn't talk about the First Amendment. They talked about the Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
Yeah.
But to me, the fundamental principles of the First Amendment here are destroyed by this decision.
And it's the other side wanted...
Because the boss is saying, I will decide what you have to believe. You have to believe the same thing I do. If I don't believe in contraception, then you can't use it, or you can't have it with no copay.
Right. And that, that's very much a double-edged sword. Hobby Lobby wanted this to be a big First Amendment case, too, or a lot of people on Hobby Lobby's side wanted the court to come out and say, this is Citizens United too. We already said corporations can speak just like individuals. Now they can practice religion just like individuals. So it may have been a win for the administration partially that they did just decide on this sort of statutory ground instead of going to the bigger First Amendment question.
Right. The Hobby Lobby decision, we're going to be hearing a lot more about it. It's a 5-4 decision yesterday. 866-55-PRESS, what are its implications, and what does the court do next? And when we come back, we'll talk to Sam Baker about this, whether or not there's anything that the Congress can do to right this wrong by the Supreme Court. People are already talking about that possibility. Again, toll-free number, 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory? Did you take a chance?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
Live on Talker TV, this is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Sam Baker, healthcare reporter for the National Journal, here in studio with us, talking about yesterday's Hobby Lobby decision and what happens now to the Affordable Care Act. Sam, is there any way that some people yesterday already said, some senators and members of Congress, well, we've got to fix this, and now we'll craft some legislation, to overturn, in effect, this Supreme Court decision. Is that likely?
No. They could, but the House is still a Republican House. A lot of conservatives wanted to craft legislation that would specifically remove the contraception mandate. So to make it apply more broadly, I think would pretty clearly be a non-starter.
So the two things about the Affordable Care Act. This is, I believe, the second exception the Supreme Court has carved out. The first was the Medicaid. States don't have to do the Medicaid expansion, and some governors have not. And now they've carved out this exception for closely held corporations. So to follow this, what's next?
That's a good question, and it could be contraception again. As you mentioned in the last segment, all these religious organizations are suing over their accommodation, saying it doesn't go far enough. That's percolating up in the courts, and that could end up back at the Supreme Court in not that long, maybe a year or two.
And meanwhile, is the Affordable Care Act now it's up and running and people have signed up and the system is working?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, looking at those two exceptions, the Medicaid expansion opt-out was very clearly a much bigger sort of blow to the fundamental goals of the law than this contraception ruling. But yeah, people have signed up. The hardest parts have been done, and things are chugging along.
And the next period of enrollment
starts in November. So we're keeping an eye on premiums ahead of that. So far, they're not rising hugely.
Yeah,
we'll see.
All right. Hey, Sam, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Good information, as always. Randi Weingarten from the American Federation of Teachers.
This
coming up
is
next.
the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Or you.
They want to help, but but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live,
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, here we go with the final half hour of the Bill Press Show this morning. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital. We are brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the AFT under President Randi Weingarten, our great teachers of America, making a difference in America's classrooms every day, you bet. And you can find out more about their good work at their website, aft.org, or you could just ask Randi Weingarten, President Randi Weingarten, in studio with us this morning. Hi, Randi. Great to see you. Thank you for coming in again. Thanks for your strong support of the program for a long time.
Thank God you're on.
We're glad to be here, I'll tell you that. We've been talking a lot about the Hobby Lobby decision yesterday, the Supreme Court, and equally important decision also coming down 5-4, the Harris v. Quinn decision, impacting, as I understand it, public employees' health care who provide health care for people in their own homes.
Right.
So as I read it now, just a layman, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. The court basically said You can be a freeloader. You can reap all the benefits that a union has provided for you and not pay any dues to the union.
Essentially, that's what the court said. Essentially,
why is that fair?
Well, it's not, well, look, if you look at both of these decisions yesterday, Havilavi and Harris, and Pam Harris is taking care of a family member and is in a, particularly different situation than most employees, getting Medicaid payments for taking care of a family member. But look at Havilavi, war on women. Look at Harris, war on women and workers. Look at Shelby, taking away voting rights. So this is a court, the majority, not the minority, but this is a court whose majority is about corporate interests and diminishing worker interests. So it's not fair to regular average Americans who frankly need government or a union to actually have some power to better their lives. I mean, that's what labor is about. It is about people. I reminded people in the last few days because our 100th anniversary of the AFT is 2016. It was started by 4 teachers in Chicago who wanted to better their lives and pursue their professional interests. That's what the American labor movement is about, and workers have taken it on the chin so much. And here you had, in Illinois, a union that was voted on by the majority of healthcare workers, the lowest paid workers, this particular union.
In homes, these healthcare workers,
They majority voted for the union, and in 10 years, this union was able to help these low-paid workers, these workers who care for our elderly and our most vulnerable. They doubled their wages, and they got people health care. That's what unions do.
Yeah,
it is
right.
Lifting up wages in a virtuous circle. You lift up wages, you increase consumer demand, you increase business investment, you increase revenues, you actually create a middle class.
Win-win, right,
and so for the court to basically say that a majority who have voted for the union and asking people simply to pay representational fees in exchange for all the union work does, for the court to say, no, that's not right, that's what's wrong with this decision.
Does this apply beyond home health care? It's bad enough for home health care workers. Does it affect all public employees, or how far is this?
So the legal, even though I am a lapsed lawyer, I still am a lawyer. I allow our lawyers to
once
actually...
a lawyer, always a
once
lawyer.
A lawyer,
right?
always a lawyer. And I do still take my CLE to keep my license. But the point is, all the lawyers that have looked at this have said that it's limited to the facts of this case in terms of this particular home health care local in Illinois. But this is the point. The people on the other side that want to diminish regular Americans' rights, they have more money than God. And so that they're just putting together the next case, and the next case, and the next case, and the next case. And so what makes this so, when you look at Justice Kagan's dissent, you have law that has been on the books for over 40 years in terms of public sector labor relations. Why is it there? So that we are focused. Teachers, firefighters, police officers are focused every single day on not what their rules of employment are, but on doing the work on behalf of the country to ensure that our communities are safe, to ensure quality public services. That's why we have collective bargaining in the public sector, so that we would do the work of tools and conditions of employment and raising wages at the bargaining table. And so we
focus on the
you know,
job.
so we can focus on the job. So what Kagan was saying is that Alito's attempt to overrule this is so wrong because of the public interest in terms of why we have bargaining as public employees in the first place.
Is the argument that they're making here, isn't this, to me, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but it echoes the right to work arguments that have been made, right? First in the private sector unions, unfortunately, very successfully in a lot of states, and now they're trying to make the same argument here. Am I wrong?
No, I mean it is exactly the same. It's exactly the same attempt to wedge, an individual who, for whatever reason, says, I don't want to be involved in the union's political work. And he or she has a right not to be.
Right.
But if the union is attempting to represent all and needs to and has to represent all fairly,
sure,
then the only way you can do it is to actually collect representational dues to do that. Because some cases are going to take gazillions of dollars. And, some work you do is going to take that kind of money and some is not. I mean, take, for example, our union, put together something called Share My Lesson. And we devoted a lot of money to it to ensure it is a sharing site that we did with, a company in London, because no American companies would do this with us. And so it is a platform that allows teachers and parents to share lessons with each other, and we have about 300,000 lessons on the site, and already in 2 years, there have been 500,000 people on it and 6.2 million downloads. Now, that cost us money to put together,
right,
and to keep up and whatever, but we were able to make it free, not only for our members, but anybody who wants to use it. That's part of what unions do. And so what happens is that you can't manufacture this. You can't manufacture your revenues. You have to find a way to fairly have revenues to do the work that the members want you to do.
I don't think most people, well, many people, I guess, realize what benefits and what the unions have accomplished for American workers. Where would American workers be today without unions?
Well, look, let me say,
whether they're union or non-union members, where would they be today without?
First off, there was no the union. There is lots of data that shows that when the union movement was 1 out of every 3 workers, meaning when we represented 1 out of every 3, now we represent 1 out of every 10. But when we represented 1 out of every 3 workers was the time when we had a blossoming middle class in this country. Now, there are other things that have happened in terms of the middle class, but what you'll see is this stark correlation that as our movement declined, and why did our movement decline? You look at the fights we've taken on, a 30-year fight against, people, starting with President Reagan and Patco, all of the attempts to thwart private sector unionism through making the NLRB not work and things like that. But if you look at the statistics, we have had as we have lost membership between the 1970s and the 2000s, wage inequality has risen. So as we've lost membership from 30% to basically 10%, wage inequality has risen 40%. And you look at even this particular union, you look at what I did in New York City. We worked with Bloomberg during a good period of time, even though I don't think it was a great boss for teachers, to raise teacher salaries in New York City 43% in 6 years, when they were making 25% less than their counterparts in the suburbs. How are you going to attract and retain and support great teaching if you pay wages where they can't afford to send their kids to college, or where they're trying to figure out how to live in a home? And take low-wage workers. Look at what happened in terms of SEIU. Look at what happens in terms of wages. Union workers' wages are about 27% higher than non-union counterparts. Unionized workers are 60% more likely to have a pension. More than 85% of union workers have jobs that provide health insurance, whereas 54% of non-union workers do not. And and think about things like public sector workers no longer have First Amendment rights to, whistleblow or complain or to stand up for kids. If they don't have due process, how do we stand up for kids? How do we take risks in classrooms to actually use our professional judgment? How do we make sure that we don't go back to a situation where the public service is based upon who you know, not what you know?
No, it's all these reasons. It's for all these reasons that I think this is such a horrible decision, and why I'm worried about what the next shoe to drop might be.
Right.
People using the court's decision and the arguments in this case and where they might take us. Randi Weingarten here, president of the American Federation of Teachers. Join the conversation at any time how this impacts you. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number here on this Tuesday, July 1. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, Al.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
At 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation for Teachers, here in the studio with us. and willing to take your calls and your comments at 866-55-PRESS. We're talking particularly about the Harris decision yesterday by the 5-4 decision by the Supreme Court. And Randy, let's say hello to Pat, if we can, out in Beloit, Wisconsin. Hello, Pat. Good morning.
Good morning, Randy and Bill.
Good morning.
After 27 years, today is my last day as being a member of AFT because it's July 1st and we are decertifying. That is thanks to Act 10. And I've been a negotiator for years. What happened is, as Scott Walker said yesterday, this proves that part of Act 10 was right because you cannot have people have to all pay to fight together. In the last year since Act 10 was enacted, I've lost almost every benefit we fought for in all these years. Next year we'll have no paid holidays. We've had insurance changes. We've lost seniority. Everything that made us strong is gone. And the only thing that Act 10 allows us to do is negotiate wages for up to 2%. So he has actively destroyed this union in our local unit. And that's happening all over the state of Wisconsin. And this is what's going to happen if decisions like this continue. And it's so disheartening because there's absolutely nothing we can do about it except vote for Mary Burke and hope that she will change the atmosphere.
Hold on there, Pat. Let's get the response from Randy.
So, Pat, we have seen this, as you know well. You and we and so many others made a valiant attempt to undo some of this damage, both in terms of the courts as well as in terms of recall elections. And whereas we won these initiatives in Ohio, we came up short in Wisconsin because Wisconsinites said you need to do it during regular election times. So I do think that the key here is we need to vote for Mary Burke and look at what's happening in terms of your state. You're totally right. What the difference between Harris and what Scott Walker did is Scott Walker took away rights. He did talk about this when he was running, and the first thing he did was strip regular people of their rights to actually work together to form a union and to negotiate the tools and conditions not only that you need to live, but that your kids need you to have to succeed in classrooms. But the race is close. And Mary Burke is talking about the issues that Wisconsinites want. And look what's happening. There is a real shot that she can win that election. So I would ask you, I know that this has been horrible, and I know that we have been trying, but the key is elections do matter, and Mary Burke for Wisconsin governor.
All right. Thanks, Pat. So good to hear from you. Thank you. Randy, the headline, very quickly, about a minute or so left, in the Post this morning is, ruling, talking about the Harris, is a setback for unions, but not a fatal one. So it's still pretty bad, isn't it?
Look, this is
meaning it could have been worse, or what?
The court, the majority in that court, gave us a shot across the bow. We know that. You read the decision, everybody knows that. But what it also is in some perverse way, there's a silver lining here. Because this case, just like what Pat just said, it connects the dots for people. It basically says, whose side is that this misnamed right to work? What is the right to work about? It is about suppressing people's rights. It is about saying you don't have any way to create power so that you have a way to influence your wages and your working conditions. Listen to what Pat just said. When Walker took away the rights to bargain, then what happens is all the things that people did in school districts to try to make schools better, to fight for kids, to create the tools and conditions they need to do a good job with kids, gone.
We can't do it anymore.
Right. And so the setback is a setback to the American public, to quality services, to community safety. Because if we don't have a voice to be able to champion these things, then the American people lose.
Absolutely. Randi Weingarten, President of the American Federation of Teachers. Thanks, Randi. Thanks so much for coming in today. Keep up the good fight. No, you will. We'll be fighting right alongside of you. Thanks. And I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, I think the ACLU got it best yesterday in response to the Hobby Lobby decision. Their headline, "A win for Hobby Lobby is a loss for everybody else." This, in fact, is one of the worst decisions in the history of this court and a slap in the face of our founding fathers. Think about it. The court said in Hobby Lobby that a corporation can break the law and deny access to certain kinds of health care coverage to its employees as long as its owners say it's against their religion. Never before have Americans been allowed to use their faith as an excuse for breaking the law. I mean, what if their religion says speed limits are wrong, for example? And just because their boss believes something doesn't mean that he can force his religious views on everybody else. What's most shameful about this decision is that those very justices who argue that we have to be true to the original Constitution have spit in the face of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who argued for the total separation of church and state. The First Amendment, say goodbye to it. It no longer exists. Hey, folks, have a great day. Come back and see us right here again
This
tomorrow morning.
Is the Bill Press Show.